We use metaphors when we find it difficult to describe a thing or an experience. So we borrow a word or a phrase which appears similar to the thing or experience which we are trying to describe. When it comes to the idea of learning, metaphors often leave the only explanation. I chose to present my ePortfolio as a canoe journey is a metaphor for one's journey through life and the skills needed to successfully navigate the journey. This is something that I felt connected personally to me as I have a strong background in history with First Nations culture. I've participated in a number of tribal canoe journeys, and the experience is something powerful and transformational. In order to shape the layout and structure of the ePortfolio using the metaphor, I had to reflect and break down the experience into 7 distinct stages. The primary theory inspiring my work is the learning theory of constructivism. I truly believe that we are better able to understand the information when we have constructed it ourselves. Learning is a social advancement. It involves language, real-world situations, most importantly, interaction and collaboration among learners. There are two major thinkers on education that inspired my works. The first being Vygotsky, his social development theory. Vygotsky's theories stress the fundamental role of social interaction in the development of cognition. He believes strongly that community plays a central role in the process of making meaning. This challenges Piaget's notion that children's development must necessarily precede their learning. In other words, Vygotsky says that social learning tends to precede development. The second is one of my favorite writers on the topic of education, and that's Paulo Freire. Uh, Something that stands out in particular to me is when Freire states that education can essentially become either one or two options. It's either a tool to bring about conformity to a present system, or it's a means of inspiring critical thinking and discovery in order to transform the world. Hi, welcome to the walkthrough or guided tour section of the ePortfolio. I'm starting on the home page. You've obviously made it here if you're watching the guided tour because this is where the guided tour is embedded. It's also where the intro video is, where I hope you had a chance to check out. Um, it's also where latest blog posts or any updates or posts that I will put on the portfolio in the future will be located. Um, there is this menu up at the top that is the navigation of the website. It's broken up into 5 different sections, and from left to right is how I would expect someone to navigate through the page. So we'll start with the overview, and in this section it really outlines the purpose, the audience, um, and explains the contents of the ePortfolio. As well, it includes some artifacts or information that I thought would be beneficial. A philosophy of education, some brief personal information on me, and as well a link or a copy to my CV or resume. I chose not to center my portfolio entirely around the metaphor because I wanted it to present as organized documentation of my professional growth. I felt that if the site were completely organized around the theme of a metaphor, it could run the risk of resembling a scrapbook of memorabilia. There are a number of ways to navigate through the metaphor. The first being these 7 stages. Um, each stage has its own icon that you can click on. As well, if you did see the image slider, if you were to click on one of these images, it would take you to that particular stage of the journey. So we'll start with the first stage, number 1, planning the trip. And we can sort of see that there will be this reoccurring theme in each stage. It will explain the stage of the metaphor and highlight a particular artifact or more than one that you can view by clicking on the icon. The artifacts will include a reflection, and then the artifact will follow. At the end of each section of the metaphor, each stage, there will be an arrow directing you to go to the next stage of the metaphor. Now, some have more than one artifact. There are some artifacts that will navigate you away from the website that I do want to explain. Um, in particular, there is a Moodle course, and if you were to visit that artifact, it will bring you to mdl2.com, and it's going to ask you to log in as a guest. You won't need to type anything in the username or password. You can just click the login as guest button, and when you do that, you'll be able to see all of the functions and all of the content of that Moodle course. And of course, you can navigate back to the ePortfolio using the back buttons, or type kgreenhalf.com into your address bar, which will take you to the homepage. Um, if you're on a particular stage in the metaphor and you sort of get lost by going to a particular artifact and you don't want to hit the back button, you can also go to the metaphor sections in the menu. So and navigate it through it that way. Once you've been directed through all 7 stages of the metaphor, you'll get to the sharing, reflecting, and re-inspiring stage of the metaphor, which I describe here, and it gives a link to the final reflection, which is sort of the summation or the wrap up of the ePortfolio. It sort of does an outline of what I felt important and how I learned through this process of creating an ePortfolio. That's about it as far as the ePortfolio goes. There is the assessment section, which just has a detailed rubric that I developed for self-assessing my ePortfolio. It's broken down into categories, and it has a 4-point scale. I hope you enjoyed the video tour, and I hope you relax and enjoy the ePortfolio, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.